Alright, so this damage section, I'm probably not going to be the best to help people with this, but what it says here is the amount of damage or recovery applied to the target. So there's different types, and that didn't really help too much, but you got HP damage, MP damage, HP recover, MP recover, HP drain, and MP drain. So drain is you take it away from the enemy and then your character recovers it. So it's like a combination of damage and recovering. Damage to the enemy and then recovering to your character. So and then the element, it says element of the damage. Final damage varies depending on the target's resistance to the element in question. So we've got normal attack, no element. So there's an element just for the normal attack. And then you could do none. And then all these other ones that we've seen before. Physical, fire, ice, thunder, water, etc. So normal attack gets its own element, which that's kind of interesting. I didn't actually realize that. But and then here's where it can get kind of complicated. The formula section. Complicated for me anyway. I'm not a numbers math person. So it says formula for calculating basic damage. The user is expressed by A and the target by B. And then either one is followed by a dot to enable the referencing of the statuses shown hereafter. For example, A.attack or A.atk stands for the user's attack power. So here on the list we can see ATK is the short form for attack stat. MAT is for magic attack, AGI for agility, MHP for max health or max hit points, whatever. HP for the current hit points or health points. TP for the tech points. DEF for defense. MDF for magic defense. LUK for luck. MMP looks like for max magic points, and then regular MP for current magic points, and then you can use level even for level. So here by default it says the default formula for a basic attack is the character A's attack times 4 minus character B's defense times 2. So if I'm understanding that correct, the target is B. So whatever your character's attack stat is, multiply that by 4. That's their basic attack power, and then subtract from that, or that's their basic attack value. Then subtract from that the target's defense value times 2. So this is the basic calculation that the game uses for normal attack. So if you're very savvy with numbers and you've got a good grasp on that, you can modify that to make the basic attack work in a different way, depending on how you want it for your game. If you don't want to mess with all that, you don't have to. It will work just fine leaving it alone, because I've never really messed with those, to be honest, and for me it's worked fine. And then this says variance here. It says the degree of variability. And so the value of the final damage will vary by this presented value. So instead of just being the exact amount every single time, like straight off of this formula, it would always hit the exact damage and every time. This kind of randomizes things a little bit, and you can change that. Obviously, it's by default it's 20%. And then here we've got a box here that says critical hits. It says whether to enable critical hits. When enabled, critical hits will be determined based on the user's critical rate and the target's critical evasion rate. So here again, another stat-based calculation to modify, but you can say yes or no if you want this ability to be able to do criticals. So and then here we have effects. This is kind of an important one. It says list of the various effects other than damage. I mean, all these are generally important, but but this is one where you can really do some cool stuff. So it says add state, normal attack 100%. So let me just click in here really quick. And it says, let's see, for add state, it says adds the specified state, specifying a value over 100% enables success rate at a higher than the target's original effectiveness. At a rate higher than the target's original effectiveness. Sorry about that. Okay, so if you wanted to do, I don't know why you would need, maybe if you really want to make sure it works, even with if they're there's some kind of defense or whatever. But you can do normal attack, you can do knockout, so you can do like actual states. And again, here normal attack gets its own state, so that's kind of interesting. And then we've got all these other options here. So for recovering health points, same thing, restores HP. Specify either a percentage of max HP or a set value, or both. In the case of items, the multiplier of the pharmacology SP parameter is applied. Okay, so if you have a healing ability, that's where you would do that. Same with recovering magic points, restores MP. Specify either a percentage of max MP or set value, same thing basically. And then gain TP, we've got that going there too. It increases the TP by the amount specified. So, and back over here, we've got remove state, which does the same, the opposite of add state, obviously. You can add buffs, debuffs, remove debuffs. So does it say what they are? It raises the fluctuation level of the specified parameter by 1. For each level, there's a 25% fluctuation in the original value, and an increase of up to 2 levels is possible. To raise a parameter 2 or more levels at one time, you can apply this effect multiple times. So here it's getting pretty complicated, to be honest, but these are all in here for you to, experiment with, and do things like that. Trial and error. Like I said, a lot of this is going to be testing and trying things out. When we get to troop testing and things like that, I'll show you where all this stuff can come into play. Debuffs are pretty much, so buffs are like boost to your status things. So it's like, a buff to their defense or a buff to their attack power, or those sorts of things. Debuffs, pretty much the opposite. It'll be, like, your attack power is weakened, or, So if you want to add that, then you would do that. And same here with just the opposite. You just remove them. It says returns the specified parameter to its original fluctuation level if it has been buffed. So, useful, maybe not for your basic attack, but useful for certain skills and stuff. You could have things like, it gets rid of, so like maybe your enemies have a defense bonus and you have an ability here that removes their defense buff, or that sort of thing. And then likewise for your characters, like, you've got a debuff that's making it so your attack is weaker. Well, we've got an ability to fix that, so then you would remove the debuff. So and then here on the other tab, we've got special effects. Can only be set for the escape command. Allows the target to escape from a battle. No experience points will be earned. So that's a pretty strange single-use thing, but there it is. Grow. It says permanently raises the specified parameter. For example, this can be used in creating an item, such as a fruit, that gives a power-up when eaten. So if you want your character to, and this is not really that useful for skills maybe, but for items and things it makes sense. For you would be able to increase their stats, like increase their max HP by 5 permanently, or that sort of thing. That's where you would do that. Learn skill. This is pretty cool. It says allows a character to learn the specified skill. For example, this can be used in creating an item such as a book that enables a spell to be used once it is read. So if you have anything like that in your game where you want to, say like, you learned a new spell from this magic book, or whatever, spell book, then you would set that up here. And finally we have this common event. Now we haven't really talked about common events yet, but it says triggers the specified common event. Only one call specification for the common event is valid. So all that means is you can only use one common event. Like you can only have a call one common event. But this is something I actually used in one of my games to do something completely different besides, the basic thing. So if you have something that you want to do that's completely different than all these other things, like you don't want your skill to do any of this stuff, but you want it to do something else, then that's how you can facilitate that, is with the common events. And generally with that, you'd probably want to remove everything else in here and just call the common event and then control it from the common event. But it just depends. There might be things in here you would want to do in addition to that. So